I got to just get my screens in order for a second. And see what's going on. And it looks like we are live right now. And I don't know why I look like I'm delayed. We'll see if that holds up. Anyways, hey everyone, welcome to, everybody can see my screens. What am I doing? Party foul. Hold on one second. Hey, say hi to Greg, everyone, while I try to fix my stuff. Of course, I was going to have an issue, like I always do. All right, now we're live. We're good. I am just going to get started. Okay. Welcome to episode 25 of Cheerful Conversations. Okay, that was fun. So before we start the show, I was trying to restart my computer to get ready for this thing. And of course, it's like, you're updating. It will take about 35 minutes. And I'm like, no! But we're here now, hopefully. And now I'm just a little paranoid. So I'm going to just check the screens one more time before we start. Okay, we are good to go. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to Cheerful Conversations today, whether it be live or on the replay. And of course, if you want to be notified every time a new video comes out, I'm going to say this for the first time because I think you're just supposed to do this on YouTube, but like and subscribe, right? Everyone like and subscribe. And I want to introduce you to my awesome co-host today. We're going to have an awesome conversation, so I'm going to stop like rambling. But Greg Ballard, one of my dear, dear friends from our coaching days. Greg, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic, April. So glad to be here with you and with those joining us live. Just been really excited about the conversation to have today. So thank you for having me.
I feel like a lot of my former coworkers are like, "Whoo, what are you going to talk about, April?" Just because everybody knows my story of how I turned into the cheerful mind, quitting my job, having a lot of interesting situations with a former boss who I will not say bad things about. But they just thought of that when I put out the title and the theme. So horrible bosses turned cheerful, and it's going to be an epic conversation.
Yes.
So before I get started, Greg, I wanted you to really quickly introduce yourself and tell everybody what you do, and we'll talk about how we met and all that fun stuff, and then we'll just dive right in.
Absolutely. So thank you for having me. Thank you for the warm introduction here. And so, coming back from our coaching days, I'm in the professional development space. And so I work with companies and individuals, executives and leaders, and really help them move forward and advance in their ability to lead, their capacity to lead, to run teams, to communicate, to think strategically. Without going into too much detail, that's essentially it. And so we do assessments, we do coaching, we do training, we do workshops, and we do consulting. And so I love helping groups of people or individuals kind of move to the next level of their ability to lead and manage and just kind of take on the world. So.
Yeah. And he is a father of four.
And our oldest will be 6 in May.
That's yes. So like, that just gave me like an anxiety attack, anxiety attack, trying to think about like, after we had 2, I was just so done. We thought we were going to have a third. And then when Ryan started walking, I was like, nope. We bought that minivan for nothing. Okay, I'm ready for a different car. So, but I love it. I mean, I love children, and all I can say to anyone who has kids that are under the age of 6 or 5 is like the 5 through 9 phase is so awesome. At least it has been for me. So they have their own personalities and they can argue with you, and it just feels there's a lot less of the work that you have to put in, which is great.
It's just every day I feel like they're taller. Every day, like, how did you're bigger? Like, what's going on? Your legs just seem to be getting higher here. What's going on? We need to stop this. And my wife and I are like, do you remember when they were like a newborn? Like, no, where's the pictures? Like,
I know. When did that happen? Wait, what? There was a time where they weren't walking. Yeah. My oldest, we have the same shoe size now. So I make him put my heels on.
Oh my gosh.
And yeah, and he's right about to like here. So I'm soon going to be bumped to the third tallest in the family, which is very, very sad for me. But it's okay because they're boys and I really hope that they're taller than me. So, all right. So how we met. So there's no secret that we met through our coaching program, but we actually haven't met each other in person, right?
No, we have not been in the same physical place at the same physical time.
So we
But
were put together on a like a special interest group. I had to go look at what PSIG meant.
yes,
As part of the program, we have 2 group assignments in the first 12 weeks and then the second 12 weeks. So this is where we met in, and you have like a different specialty. And so there were a whole bunch of them, but the one that we were in was the professionals group.
yes.
And so I thought that was really, really cool because I was in that place where I was kind of in between something either more corporate or organizational and, entrepreneurship. And I didn't really know where I fit it in. And I was like, that's the one where I feel like I know the most about, because the others were like health and wellness. And what were the other ones? Like small business or executive, corporate.
Yes. Yeah. I remember all of those. And it was it was really interesting because we spent like almost 5 months with our original core interest group. And then all of a sudden, like towards the end of the program, they're like, okay, you're getting a whole new group and a whole new set of people.
Yeah.
And you're like, I don't want to be with a bunch of strangers, like, why are you making us do this? Like, no, I want to stay with my people. And then, within 2 weeks, you're like, these are my people, these are my people. So cool. So glad. And you and I connected, and there was actually another woman, Miranda, in that same group. We've stayed in touch. And it's just been really, really cool how the relationships have formed from that, that program.
I have to reach out to Miranda. I haven't talked to her in a while too. So tell her I said hi if you talk to her before I do.
I will.
We'll say hi now because maybe she can watch this video. Okay, so the next question is, what's something that you geek out on that is not not expected? It could be something people totally don't know about you, or just something unique.
Oh, wow. So adding that qualifier, I'll think, but my first, when I first saw that question, like I was thinking, I totally geek out on apps. Like my smartphone, I had to go with the larger size because like my first instinct, is there an app for that? Is there an app for that?
Yeah.
And, so the little confession, like I probably spend too much time with apps, and I could just do a whole lot of just like, okay, I don't need to deal with that. I don't do a lot of games. I do some games. I have a Chess Pro app. And so like if I'm bored or if I'm in a line or if I'm idle, I'm going to open up and I'm going to have like a blitz game of chess with my phone.
My latest gaming app is like Spider Solitaire. I don't know.
Oh my gosh.
My son actually got me on Solitaire because I used to play it as a kid all the time on planes. Like when we were traveling, like I would have just my little like table and I would just play Solitaire. So he started playing, I don't even know who taught him. And I was just like, oh no, you just unleashed the inner beast. Because I was just like, oh, I've got to play, but I can't just bring cards around. I have to find an app. So I tried like 8 or 9 different apps, and then I'm like, oh, what about Freestyle? I remember playing that. Oh yeah, Spider Solitaire. So I kind of got stuck on Spider Solitaire and actually compete against other people.
Gotcha. Yeah.
What a time waster, but it's still like it's fun. It's good brain training, I guess.
So the second one, as a dad, like I geek out on Lego and construction kits now because our oldest, he is like a systems engineer.
Yes.
He like literally can read the process, and he will, like, you give him any step-by-step process, he can build whatever. He's actually gone and created his own step-by-step processes for things that he's made up. And like, Daddy, look, like I built this, and you have to find out what it is. And he'll tell you what it is. It's a rocket ship. Oh, okay. And then he's got a step-by-step handwritten process for how to build it.
Oh, what's the latest kit you've bought? Because I feel like we have so many.
I don't know what they're called, but they're all multi-shapes and they kind of press together with a snap. And so they're plastic, they're multicolored, and he's got a buzz cutter. And then my wife found a hot rod. and they take a little bit of force to get them together. So that we've
Uh-huh.
got those, and then we've got the mini Legos, where the kits, like with the
Yeah.
city kits, where you've got the policeman, you got the
Yeah.
helicopter chasing the bank robber.
Yeah.
And then the other big thing that the two boys are into is Paw Patrols.
Paw Patrol.
Paw
Hmm.
Patrol. Like our second son turned 4 last Tuesday, and he was just like, Paul Ranger. We could not find Ranger. My wife was searching high and low for this one toy, and she found it. And she made the cake into a jungle and put the Ranger on it. And like my son was literally out of his skin with excitement the whole day.
Oh,
So
love how like the smallest
yeah,
things are so important to them.
yeah.
All right. And then before we dive into we've got 2 more things that we got to do before we start talking about
Yep.
horrible bosses. So I pull a question from this fun game that I have called Vulnerability is Sexy. There's two different categories that you can choose from. One is just break the ice, so it's a little bit lighter, and then there's get vulnerable, which some of them are a little bit deep. So which one would you like to pick from?
Oh boy. Let's go vulnerable. Let's see what's in there.
I think I just started that in the last episode. So okay. This isn't that bad. The question is what? I'm trying to get it. What makes you anxious?
Oh boy. It's interesting because I think a little anxious is being in front of a group. I mean, I love presenting. I love being on a platform. However, no matter what, I did 4 years of drama, and no matter what I was doing, my body would say, you need to go to the men's room.
I gotta go bathroom.
And the team got to realize, like it's 15 minutes before we're on the stage. Where's Greg? And like the veteran's like, he'll be here. It's fine. He's okay. But it's like that butterfly thing. And I actually went through a speaking program. Hero Public Speakers, Michael Navy Port, amazing people. And what Michael shared with us one time, and it was such a shift for me, is if you're feeling that anxiety, that stuffy, that butterflies in the stomach, it just means you care.
Yeah.
It means you care about what you're doing. You care about the people that are there to listen to you. You care about your message. And when I had that kind of insight, I was like, okay, this is okay. This is normal. And so it still happens. Like I still get a little butterfly, a little nervous. But I look at that as a reminder of like, I'm engaged and I care about what I'm about to say, as opposed to I've moved past it for whatever reason.
Love that. Yeah. I feel like everybody, so many people struggle with that whole just being in big groups and all that stuff. I went a totally different direction with that question, and I was like, what makes me anxious? And it's like not feeling like I can stop, like I'm on a train of I'm doing this, and then I'm starting to lose focus because everything leads to something else that I get distracted in, and then I start in this circle of like, oh my gosh, I have to respond to 50,000 things all at once because I let it distract me. I get really anxious. I also get really anxious when I have like a lot of papers that aren't sorted through. So I spent most of yesterday doing that. Like I have all of these papers that I've taken notes on, and I have to actually do something with them. So like every time I throw a piece of paper away, I'm like, yes. So that's what makes me anxious.
Gotcha.
That and a lot of emails in my inbox, which I have not addressed yet. So, okay. The next thing, as we do in every single episode, we are trying to continue to push some cheerful, positive news out into the world. So, how about Greg, you go first, and then I'll share my story after you.
Absolutely. So, some cheerful news from my side here. As you mentioned, I mentioned to you before, about 6 months ago, I started working with part-time with this nonprofit called Educate Me. And real quick about who they are and what they do is they are a startup nonprofit, and they raise money here in the US, and they actually remove the financial barrier for capable kids in poor communities in sub-Saharan Africa to get a quality education. That's, it's really, really cool stuff. I mean, it goes beyond just paying the fee. because we pay 90% and the parent or someone at home covers 10%. To make sure they're vested. But we also do mentoring. So our staff meets with these kids. They go to the schools, they visit with them. We do life skill building. We help prepare them for the world. And I think it's just really amazing what this small group of people have done so far. And so we have a little over 100 students in the program. And what was really cool, so the cheerful news is our lead child advocate, Binta, was here in the US for the very first time for the National Prayer Breakfast just a few weeks ago. And she got to share her story. And her story quickly is her parents and her were living up in northern Uganda during the Joseph Kony, raid, which was, he was basically taking children and turning them into child soldiers. And to become a child soldier, you had to murder your parents. Oh my God. And then he was taking the girls and turning them into forced wives of these child soldiers. And so as those armies were coming down from the South Sudan into Uganda, Binta and her family began to flee. And there's just a whole lot that was going on, but essentially her mother worked as much as she could, trying to sell things on the street. And, and she almost died one time. And so she stopped doing that. And then she started selling alcohol. Making alcohol, and then one day somebody went and killed all the people in front of the establishment that she created. It was absolutely horrendous. And, her family had no way of getting her an education. And so somebody sponsored this young girl to go to school. She did exceptionally well in primary school. She did exceptionally well in secondary school. And then she went on to and applied to one of the top high schools in the country, Cornerstone Leadership Academy, and she was accepted. So I think 2,000 applicants, 25 people get in. She got in, and she actually blew away everyone. She got the highest GPA in the history of the school. And then she was given a full government scholarship for university. And then coming out of university was when the two co-founders for this organization were talking to their network, and they said, hey, we have this idea. We want to identify some quality schools and partner with them, and then go into the neighborhood slums and look for capable kids that can't afford to go to school and then pay for their. And they said, you need Binta. And so they hired Binta, and she took the idea and she made it what it is today. Oh, and so the cheerful news for me is, as I share this story, is here is a young woman that went through some very horrible consequences in her childhood. And yet, because somebody sponsored her, she had access to a quality education. She took advantage of that. And now she is running our organization over there, and she's helping kids get quality education, and she loves it. And so she was here. She got to meet a bunch of people. She got to share her story. And I just actually spoke to her this morning as we debriefed her visit. And I'm just really excited to see what happens with this organization. Yeah. And when you think about it, we live here, we have first world challenges. And so we just assume education is free, education is available. And it's not like that everywhere else in the world. And so there's an opportunity, to do good.
That's awesome. Now, if people wanted to hear more about this organization or see if they're inspired by this story, is there a way that they could reach out or?
Absolutely. So our website is educateme.org. You can go to our website. Still working on it. It's been up there for a little while, but you can find some information there. And the other thing to do is go to our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/educateme.org. So educateme.org at the end of the Facebook. Awesome. And of course, they can always ping me directly. I work with the organization. I represent them now, and be happy to answer any questions they have.
That's awesome. Oh, that's such a nice story. That kind of just makes my story sound like womp womp. But I still think I picked this one because I think it's important. So I just heard this on the radio, actually. So then I had to Google it. What is this? What's going on? And it just came out this week. But Dove, the brand, is offering $5,000 grants for dads without access to paid paternity leave. I think that's freaking amazing. Because, dads are just, and this is a great gift to women, in my opinion, right? Because, we, especially new parents, it's really, really hard to go through that birthing process and then be like, okay, husband, go back to work. And my husband, for our first kid, Justin, he had to actually leave for a work trip 3 days or like a day after like we came home, because I was in the hospital for a little bit longer, and he's like, oh, I'll just take a week off because he didn't have paternity leave. And then because of the length of time I was in the hospital and trying to recover,
Mm-hmm.
it was like we were home for 24 hours and then he was gone. So I was like, Mommy, help me. And I was just a mess. And the second one, his company actually decided to, because it's an international company that he was working for, and they were doing paternity leaves, like 6-week paternity leaves, like internationally, but not in the US. And so,
Mm-hmm.
right when we were like 5 months pregnant, they announced that this was going to happen. And so he actually got a 6-week paternity leave for the second one, which he actually like enjoyed by, going golfing and all that stuff in addition to taking a paternity leave. But it's okay. I appreciated that he was home for a good chunk of it and not working the entire time. But but what's interesting too is that maybe a year or two after they put that in motion in the US, they like took it away. So I don't know. This story just really struck a chord with me, because I just feel like, you know, the parents, especially dads,
Yeah.
they need that time to bond with their
Well,
children, especially
I
when they're
mean,
not the ones giving birth.
yeah, and it strikes a chord with me too. I mean, our first two children, at that time I was, I had a lot of freedom in my role.
Mm-hmm.
And we're, everything I did was pretty close together, and the whole team was very supportive. So when when we had our children, everybody was around us. We had community around us.
Yeah.
But as you actually get higher up in the numbers of kids, it becomes even more critical. And
Yeah.
so when we had our daughter, I had planned and blocked off time, around the due date, and I missed it. We were wrong. She came 2 weeks late. And so imagine being in a work environment. You say, okay, I want to take leave. And then you plan it, and it doesn't, the baby just doesn't get the memo when they're supposed to arrive. And then with our fourth one, I work from home, and, my wife said, Greg, you just need to be here for 3 months. I need you, because we have 4 young kids, and I'm grateful to be in a place where I could say, okay. And we were able to do that. But,
Yeah.
it's a huge deal, because you just, I mean, women are heroes in my book. I've watched this process now 4 consecutive times.
Yeah.
And what your body goes through, and the energy and the effort it takes to like deliver a child, and then to come home and try to think, you're going to do everything else, like when you're pregnant, when your wife's pregnant, it's like, okay, I can't wait to, you're looking at the baby's coming out, and like, you're like celebrating that. And then the first time you wake up in the middle of the night with that newborn in the hospital, and you're like, oh boy, the journey has just begun.
Yeah.
And so to think all the effort and the time and the energy that comes after the baby is delivered.
That's the hard part.
That's the real work.
You're like, stay in the hospital as long as possible, because then you have to go into the real world and you have no help unless you hire somebody to like come to your house.
Yeah. You're going to let me walk out of this building alone with this infant, and you're not going to like check on me.
Yeah, they're like, bye.
Yeah. Here, watch the video. Don't shake the baby. Go home. Put him on his back, and you'll be fine.
Good luck. See you later.
Here's an 800 number if you need to call somebody.
Oh my gosh. I remember the first, and then we'll move on, just because I'm like, so nostalgic. I remember the first time after when I had Justin, my oldest, I was like, there was the first day after, they were like walking me to the bathroom, and then I got so comfortable with that, and I was like, are you going to walk me to the bathroom? And I think the nurses had switched shifts, and she's like, you can go on your own. And I was like, okay. And then I just like sitting there, like just feeling all gross and just trying to like slide my feet on the dirty hospital floor. Like, okay, I guess I'll go to the bathroom by myself. So, okay. That could have just gone super weird in just a second.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's so funny. But anyways, okay. So I am so excited to talk about this concept of horrible bosses. And I was so happy as soon as you mentioned that this was something that you were, investigating and doing research on and diving into it. I was like, oh my God, we need to talk about this, because so many people struggle with this. And I think a lot of times, and, both my husband and I have experienced a time where our bosses weren't the most ideal. And it made our lives not just our lives, but everyone else around us are
Yeah.
their lives miserable. And it was the catalyst to me starting my own business. And I think to this day, my former boss is still in the role that she's in. I think, I don't know.
Mhm.
And I just feel like a lot of the people who I talk to who are considering career changes, there is that aspect of my boss sucks. Like I've had multiple clients that are like, they're scarred for life. It's like they almost hate working for somebody else because of their boss. And a lot of times I have to be like, hey, not everybody is like that, but there are a lot of bosses out there. So let's just dive into it. Why
Absolutely.
are there so many horrible bosses that exist in this world?
Oh my gosh. So yeah, I'm really I'm curious in this conversation as well. And I've had a number of interviews already, and I'm still doing research and grabbing stories that, may come into a book or a talk. And so what really triggered me, I just want to kind of give you a little background. What triggered me to look into this is, the work that I do is often, hey, how do I manage up? How do I manage to the side? How do I manage down? And I engage with a few clients and they're like, I really need help up, like this is like really, really hard. And spent a lot of time working with those clients and seeing some progress. And then I started, the colleague of mine wrote a book about managing up. And then I started thinking about, this whole challenge around, we have senior leaders that, for lack of a better way of put it, we have a blind spot.
Mm-hmm.
And, how do we help them with that blind spot? And so just kind of mulling over this, I began to think back about my own journey. And I began to recognize, I was 19 when I was promoted into a management role, into a, high level management role. I was given the keys to a multi-million-dollar place and, supervision over staff. And, they had to knock the walls down because my head was so big.
Oh.
Okay. I was just that young, that green. And yet somebody saw something in me to say, you can be developed. Okay. And so the one thing is that we have to kind of take into account, well, where are people on their journey in management and leadership, and how much training have they had? What's their foundation?
Yeah.
And if you've come from a place where, it hasn't been healthy, then how in the world are you going to lead in a healthy way or supervise in a healthy way? And so I think we end up with these, people that are leading us, managing us, overseeing us, and they're not sure what to do because they've never been shown how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's really one thing. The other one is maybe they've been doing it so long and they found a way that works and gets a kind of result that other leaders are happy with. One of the things I've realized in the conversations I've had is that results seem to cover a whole multitude of sins when it comes to management and leadership. And so if you check off a certain amount of buttons or boxes, or if you hit a certain metric, you can almost do whatever you want in some of the other spaces. And that really frustrates me because, and I think it should frustrate all of us. It should frustrate, leaders of organizations to say, well, no, wait a second. We don't want just checking boxes.
Yeah.
We want people to truly thrive. And we want, really high capacity, high engaging leaders that are doing this in a healthy way. But we don't. We just kind of accept that, well, they've been here a long time. They know what they're doing. I don't want to upset the apple cart.
Mm-hmm.
And so in my opinion, another reason why we have them is we tolerate them.
Yeah.
So we create them and we tolerate them. And I don't know that there's been a lot of conversation around this. I know I've been looking at books, and there's tons of books about the super boss and being a great boss. And there's lots of good stories of bosses that are out there that are really rocking it. But I haven't found, and I'm open, if anybody of you or any of your viewers have come across a resource that is like, hey, here's how to be a great leader, how to be a great boss. I'd love the reference because I'm digging into this, but I don't see a lot of the how to. I see a lot of, here's someone that's doing it and here's what they're doing.
Yeah.
And I think that's just a different approach to it.
Yeah. And I don't know, I think a lot about mean, there's other reasons that I see some other people getting into these upper levels. It's also like, you have a relationship, not like that kind of relationship, but like you have a close relationship with somebody who is in a position of power and you're just kind of like milking whatever you can to get in there. Or there could also be a loyalty issue where, this person's been working and they do really, really great work. They just suck at being leaders. And I just don't know. Once they get into those positions, it's like super hard to get them out.
Yeah.
And because then it's like you've given them a taste of like what's possible, but now you can't just, it's not as easy to take it away and say like, oh yeah, we're going to decrease your salary. Like you never hear that even as somebody who is working in an organization. It's like once you like open that, then
Yeah.
like,
So the idea that the Peter principle is that you're going to get promoted to the point beyond your level of ability,
yeah,
and then you stop. And so like, okay, let's get you to the highest level we can get you, which you fail at, and then we leave you there.
yeah,
That's essentially the Peter principle. And the other thing is, coming back to what you're saying is, we don't know how to develop people, and we often assume we can. And so, say we begin mentoring somebody, or somebody begins to form one of those relationships, like, hey, I want to help you, I help you, you help me. I want to advance, and who doesn't want to advance? We all want to advance, and human nature, because this is, I think, the root issue here. Human nature is to angle ourselves, position ourselves to advance. And so, if we get into a mentoring or a grooming kind of relationship, that person may not know how to, they may be an effective leader, but they may not know how to develop an effective leader.
yeah.
And so, they may make an assumption like, okay, I think I can develop you. And so I'm a huge fan of this concept. I don't know if you've ever heard of this illustration of God loves to give us oversized sweaters. you know
Mm-hmm.
and he likes to put us into things that are just really beyond our ability to accomplish,
That we can kind of grow into it.
and he's doing that so that he can stretch us to fill them.
Yeah.
And I think it's great when God does it, but it may not be ideal when your boss or your manager decides that they think they can do it.
Yeah.
And and there's a double-edged sword here, because we typically grow when we're challenged.
Mm-hmm.
And we're challenged when we're put in an environment that is a little beyond us. And so I think we've got to look at, okay, what's the difference between putting somebody in an opportunity that they're going to struggle with for a little while, but they're going to get through it. And I think that's where, and this is kind of the pivot point that I want to make, is the horrible boss conversation isn't necessarily about looking at your boss or your last boss. It's really looking at ourselves inside and saying, where's the horrible boss within us?
Mm-hmm.
If you're leading or supervising, or if you have any inclination towards that direction, how do we look in the mirror and say, okay, how do I deal with that horrible boss that could potentially come out?
Mm-hmm.
And when we're willing to acknowledge that, and we're willing to say, I'm going to address that, I think we've come a whole long way from where we are today. Because right now, most people in these positions won't even acknowledge that they have any development to do.
Yeah, and I think that that's the hard part, right? I mean, I think all good leaders will ask the question to themselves, like, what can I do better? Whereas other horrible bosses might look at, and say, I'm in this place and I kind of run the show and take it or leave it, or, and I just don't, that's frustrating, because how do you even have a conversation with somebody who's not willing to look and reflect on their own
Yeah.
self,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I think that this goes with every personal development thing. Like when you think that when you're not doing enough, like that's still better than not having the awareness and just not caring, right? Because I think people who are afraid, like, am I like overstepping my boundaries, or am I doing too much, or am I not good? Is there places where I can improve? That just is a signal that they're open to some sort of change or improvement. But a lot of times,
Yeah. So a lot of times people get the notion of like, yeah, I'm open to change. But when they get direct feedback on where that needs to happen, they can, they may want to dismiss it. And so some of the things that trigger, I'm overgeneralizing here. So to
Yeah.
your audience, like I'm not trying to pin anyone into any category, but some broad strokes. You know, if you're coming from an insecure place, it's likely that some of your management or leadership styles are going to have consequences because of that insecurity.
Yeah.
Because, you know, you may tend to want to project confidence because you're not really confident.
Mm-hmm.
And when you project confidence, and I can identify, I've done this. I can look back and see that I've done this myself. When you try to project confidence, it just actually reveals your insecurity, and it undermines your ability to influence.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so we overcompensate with the insecurity piece. And so you have to address that. If you want to grow as a leader, you have to address your insecurity. That means talking about it, putting it on the table,
Yeah.
finding a relationship with a mentor, someone you trust, a coach, you know, someone that you can say, okay, this is a safe place for me to talk about this. It's not the place to bring this to your team or to your peers, because I think that's the other direction. Is like, okay, I'm going to be completely transparent with everybody, and
Mm-hmm.
that's how I'm going to get in. No, because that undermines you as well. The people that follow you don't want to know you're insecure. They,
Yeah.
they want to know that you're confident and you're competent. And that is something that you can't fake.
Yeah.
And that I think is a kind of a key point.
You know, that is interesting. And, you know, I've been listening to my audiobook version because I'm editing and going to get that out in the world soon.
Mm-hmm.
But it's funny because in my chapter on relationships, I talked about all the different types of relationships. And one of the tips that I shared was this transparency issue. I went in all of the leadership roles that I had in my past. I had, you know, I think when I first started managing, I had the issue of just the micromanager, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's like one different type of like how you can be a horrible boss. So yeah, I apologize to anybody who worked for me before. I was just like a perfectionist, and I wanted to, you know, I wanted everybody to succeed, but then there was also this piece of like, oh my gosh, if this doesn't get done, it's on me, you know? And so I wanted to make sure, but I didn't take the step to say, hey, how could I inspire you to learn these lessons instead of feeling like I have to fix everything that you're doing. Then, you know, I did this other leadership opportunity where I was just completely transparent because it was that type of organization. It was a voluntary organization. I was the leader of it, and I wanted people to have a part in the conversation because I had been on this council that I was on, you know, for a number of years, and I was like, people didn't really know what was going on, so I tried to be more transparent, and that was fine until there was a conflict,
Mm-hmm.
and then it was like, you know, people were basically at each other's throats. And at some point, somebody needs, like, the leader needs to make a decision. And so I was like, okay, transparency is so good in terms of leading, but you have to really know where that fine line is, because then all of a sudden you're losing your power if you are in that leadership position.
Yeah.
And so I had that
Yeah.
situation where we had a conflict over something so stupid. And I just kind of shut off all communication, and I just made a decision, and then everyone was mad because I wasn't transparent about it, and I could have probably been a little bit more, you know, here's what I decided, but I just was like, I'm done, like I don't want to even talk about it, so I'm just gonna make a choice and just go.
Yeah. So
it,
just to come back to the micromanagement thing,
Mhm.
and I want to really highlight there's two sides to this, and some people may feel really upset about it, but
okay.
micromanagement and macromanagement are two management styles.
Mm-hmm.
Micromanagement is actually important to know how to do when time or money are on the line.
Yeah.
Because you have to control in order to make the budget or to make the deadline. And so it's not a horrible, evil thing to micromanage. I can think back, there was a particular, you know, time in a role where I micromanaged a process. It was a critical process for who we were and for our operations. I micromanaged the process, and I worked with a young guy, and I think he felt like I micromanaged him. And there's a significant difference between micromanaging a process and a person. And I think, you know, the sentiment you're getting at is we don't want to work for a micromanager who wants to control every little thing that we do all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree that's not the kind of person that anybody's going to enjoy working for. We want to feel like we can contribute something without, you know, needing to check a bunch of boxes for somebody else.
Yeah.
But
And I don't think I was a horrible micromanager, but I was
but
definitely.
I want to make a distinction because I think there are some people, some managers and leaders out there that do want to, hey, I need to control this process for a brief time or indefinitely, or I need to control you for this particular instance. And they automatically get labeled, you're a micromanager.
Yeah.
Okay. And that perception can get created, and it's really hard to shake. And so you have people in role like, oh, I don't want to be perceived as a micromanager, so they don't do the thing they need to do. And so I just want to kind of let you and your viewers know there is a, this was shared to me by a mentor. Micromanagement can be a tool when it's necessary, but it's not supposed to be how we identify ourselves or how we operate.
Yeah.
And so just to kind of put that out there.
Yeah. Now I'm like, was I micromanaging the process? But then I'm going to have to think about that because
it's really
I'm all about process efficiency, and that's probably why I felt like, nope, this has to go. Wait, why are you doing this? And so I don't know. I'm going to have to think about that now. That's a good point. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. They're just, what I'm trying to get is there could be a situation where micromanaging is actually the right thing to do.
Yeah.
In general, we really want to give people the delegation and the freedom, the autonomy to get what needs to get done.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like, in hindsight, it's like, I could have probably worked a lot less by just not worrying so much about every little detail. But I'm a process person, so it's very hard for me to not do that sometimes. But I also know that I wouldn't want to micromanage unless I really, really care about something. And I want to do that. And so I try to do that more now, even though I'm running my own business and the people who do and all that stuff. So, so kind of coming back to this whole situation, I think because there's been so many people who I have seen that have left companies because their boss was bad or left positions. And, a lot of this spurs like, am I in the right role? I just need to get out. Is there ever any way that people can, even if it's, if their boss is the one who is not working with them in a way that is not stressful, is there a way to turn this situation working for a horrible boss into a more cheerful one? Or is there going to always be that result of like, you just get pushed out?
Yeah. So, I mean, this is a great question. And just to give you a little context, so I think it's 10 for 10 or 11 for 11, the interviews I've done with solopreneurs, there is a horrible, evil boss that in that path. And I'm not evading your question, but I think this is an important insight this came out in one of the interviews of like, here are some phenomenal people that are competent and capable, and they have the belief in themselves enough to go out and do their own thing. And one of the seemingly, I can't prove this, but from the interviews I've had, it seems a pretty strong argument. One of the primary reasons that they're out in the world doing their own thing is because they were mismanaged, and they're no longer part of an organization, bringing all their energy and all their effort to that organization because somebody mismanaged them and created an experience where they felt like I have to go out on my own. I have to do my own thing. I can't imagine working for somebody else again. And so, and if it's kind of interesting because as solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, we're like the only people that'll give up a 40-hour-a-week job so we can work 100 hours.
I know, right? Isn't that crazy?
Like, because we're free. So we were working 40 with a consistent income and health benefits and all that. And now we're working like 70, 80, 100 hours, and we're doing it all on our own. And we are so happy to be free. There is something in there to note, because people don't leave companies, they leave managers.
And it's crazy because I literally said at a dinner at the president's house of the university that I worked at, like literally like 3 weeks before I started my medical leave, I was like, I'm going to retire here. I'm like, I love this place so much. I want to retire here. And then it was like, I was just maybe oblivious to the situation that I was going through. But I loved working there so much. And every once in a while, I'm like, how can I go back?
Mm-hmm.
Like where I won't have any like interaction with that situation. Like it was so bad.
Yeah.
And I know that there's a lot of other people who struggle with that same thing, and that's why we have, that's why we are pulled together. Like I had that experience too. But I don't always want to say, that there's that, that entrepreneurship is the right route for them.
It may not be. I mean, entrepreneurship is hard. I mean, we could do a whole show on that. You know, what does it take to actually be successful? And it is hard. And so I think the people that have achieved success look back and are like, if I knew it was going to take this far to get here, I wouldn't have done it.
Yeah.
But they can say that having achieved it. And you don't know what the price is going to be when you start. You just know, I don't want someone else to dictate, how my day and how my weekend, how I feel, because a manager in an organization has so much influence for your being, and if it's done in a healthy way, because there are a lot of good organizations, there are a lot of healthy leaders that really, people would sign up to work for them because they know it's going to be hard, but it's going to be really good at the same time.
Yeah.
And so coming back to how do you pivot from this? And so I'm gonna refer a colleague of mine, she doesn't know I'm doing this, but Managing Up by Mary Abijay.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, her book goes really deep into this, okay? How you manage up. But it's not just, at the end, she talks about how to deal with difficult bosses, but most of it is in general managing up. And so highly encourage that read. But if you're in it and your supervisor, your boss is just a little disconnected from reality, is making things very difficult for you, there's a couple things that I might recommend. And one is, take some time to shift your perspective. Okay. Think about what's going on their plate. Like if you were in their seat, what would you be dealing with? And so you have to think about their peers and those personalities and how they behave, and their manager. And if you have any insight into that person, you may not really be aware of everything that your manager, your boss is really dealing with, because typically they can't tell you everything, and they're not gonna. And so we just have to realize we don't know what's going on. All right. And then there could be things at home that are creating this. And we're not going to excuse it, but if we can understand and from a human perspective, begin to see them, they're human, it can really change things for us. And so I say that, and I want to come to the 5 choices. And April, this may sound very familiar to you from our training, but in any situation, we have 5 choices. Okay. The first one is we can remain the victim. Nobody wants to be the victim. So we can, pretty much move off of that one. But it is a choice. We can sit in a situation and stay there. Number 2, we can shift our perspective, which is what I kind of just suggested. Nothing's really changing, but we're looking at it from a different angle. And when we see it from a different angle, it can allow us to release that frenetic energy, that stress, that anxiety, and to move on and to move forward. The next thing we could try to do is we can try to change it. And so with that, it's, maybe you have a conversation. Maybe you sit down and you begin to talk about what's going on, and you try to develop the relationship and see if something can change.
Hey, boss, you suck. You want to do something about it?
May not be the opening line, but there's ways you can go about that.
Yeah.
And the third one is you can accept it as it is. Okay. So is that number 3 or is it no? That's number 4.
That might be 4.
That's number 4. You can accept it. You can just say, you know what, this is who they are. They're not going to change. And it doesn't have anything to do with me. And I can still do my job. And I remember working with a client very early in our coaching program, and there was a home situation. And we're able to get her to a point where, this other person did nothing different But she came to an understanding of like, okay, that's just the way it's going to be. And then all the stress and all the tension that would get triggered was gone.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what acceptance looked like. It's like nothing actually changes except for you at that point.
Yeah.
And then there's the fifth one, the last one, which is you can leave, or you can walk away. Those are our five choices. You can remain the victim, you can shift your perspective, you can change the situation, you can accept the situation, or you can leave the situation.
Mm-hmm.
And so unfortunately, that's what often people do. I mean, right now we're in such a hot economy. There's people moving around because they're looking for better opportunities. And a better opportunity isn't always better pay. It may be just an opportunity to work with a manager that will invest in them. And so if I was talking to somebody in a supervisor role, in a manager role, how do we help you become more cheerful? Yeah. It might look like, okay, one, you have to look in the mirror and really kind of have that tough conversation of how could I improve and where do I need to develop? And where can I invest in myself so that I can manage and lead these people to help achieve their highest potential.
Yeah.
The thing is, I think our corporate structure is designed to serve the business. And in many cases, it's completely left out the people in the business. And we've got to find a hybrid. How do we create a structure and an environment and a culture where the needs of the business are being taken care of, but the people are also being taken care of as well? And I think that's kind of the big thing we've got to look at.
Yeah, I agree, because I feel like, and I don't know if this is just part of our working culture now, where, I mean, because people are moving around so much, there's no benefit to staying in a place super long. But what if it's a really good job and there's nothing wrong with it and you actually enjoy it? Like, I just
actually, I would challenge you. I think there's a lot of benefit in stability.
Yeah.
I think there is a lot of benefit for an organization for people to stay. And I think there's a lot of benefit for an individual to stay as long as they are being challenged and developed to reach their potential.
Yeah.
And so what typically happens is you're given a job. And in many corporate spaces, like, oh, that's your job, head teller, and no matter where in the organization, you will always be the head teller. And that's it. Like, no one can see more within you. And so when we're in that environment, we're forced to go outside of the organization to say, no, I'm better than that. And I'm going to go get something that's better than that.
Yeah.
And so if we had organizations that were able to look deeply into our capabilities, into what we could do, into our potential, and help us attain that, well, then we would want to stay.
Yeah, no, I that's definitely what I think what I was trying to say. But I think in terms of, like, I just wish, I mean, there's this part of this, I think we've just gotten used to just moving around when the opportunity wasn't, or the path isn't letting us go. So I think I'm echoing.
The norm. To move around is absolutely the norm. That is what our current climate is like. I remember, 5 years was kind of like, 5 years, you go somewhere, you stay 5 years. Then it became 2. Now I think it's like 12 to 18 months. If you're somewhere for 12 to 18 months, you've done your stint and you can move on somewhere else. But that has a drastic impact that I don't think we've all considered yet.
Yeah, I mean, and it's just like you have to retrain people all over again. And it's just, I don't know. I mean, you can only do, I mean, I think a lot of my jobs, I would move up after like 3 years is I need a new position, not necessarily a new career path or a new, but it was just like, year 1 is like learning the lay of the land. Year 2 is like really getting into it and really like solidifying, the expertise that you have. And then 3 is like, okay, now how do you take it and shift it to something that if you were to move on, if you were to move on, how could you have it almost run a little bit less without you? And then you can start looking for other opportunities. And a lot of times it was like, okay, I'm in this role for 1 to 2 to 3 years, and then I'm ready for something new because I get bored easily. But it was still, in some cases, jumping from one level to like a higher level of that same position, just a different context or different group that I was working with. So I just don't know. I mean, I feel like people don't think a lot about trying to keep people engaged, especially people who maybe are working in an organization and they move around a lot just because they're learning all the different sides. But then there gets to a point where they're just like, okay, we're not going to fight for you anymore. But that person might have a lot of institutional knowledge that then you're losing when they leave. And so there's just not enough support of, hey, if this is somebody that you want to keep, or if somebody who wants to, continue to stay at this organization, how can you fuel them to, pursue whatever it is that they're passionate about in those, or the roles that they're considering.
And I mean, this cuts both ways, because if you're on the management side, you're looking at your staffers, your contributors, and you're saying, well, why are you picky? Why do we need to cater to you? We've given you a job. Do the job we hired you to do. And then after you've done that for a while, we'll talk about you. And this is, I think, kind of the core of the problem is our companies are designed, for the company to benefit. And we get enough of the benefit for people to say they'll take the job, they'll do the job. But I think there's just a lot of opportunity to trying to find the in this, and like, okay, we're going to bring you in and you're going to give us this and we're going to give you that. But it's more than just compensation. It's, okay, what are the skills that you want to develop? And this is where I have found my success, is being able to go after an objective, engage a team to say, hey, this is the objective I'm going after. I want to engage you. I want to bring you along. Well, let me ask you, what is your core goal? Where do you want to go?
Yeah.
And how can we tie in your goals with this objective as well?
Yes.
And when I've been able to do that successfully, it's always worked. It's always gone very, very well.
Because then it's a we-win situation instead of like, hey, we're going to give you a job. Because I mean, that's not enough. I mean, I think that the more and more, our younger generation grows, it's like they want to be passionate in what they're doing. They want to make sure that their values are being honored in whatever career path they choose. And so, I think it's making it more of a two-way street would definitely be a good shift in the right direction. It's just a matter of how do you do that? How do you shift the mindset of our working culture? Right?
Well, I think, that's the kind of thing that I'm curious to see what would happen as I do this research and maybe start talking about it more and more on different platforms. Is society really ready to kind of shift the way our expectations on corporate culture? Yeah. And people vote with their feet. And I'm telling you, if enough people decide to say to an organization, we can't tolerate, the way you manage and lead, enough people, hit critical mass, and they'll say, okay, we will change this. We will take a new approach, because otherwise they won't be in business. Our tolerance, our desire for that paycheck and that fear of what happens if I try to leave, actually, collectively gets us where we are today.
Yeah.
And so, and we're in a new generation. We're in the 21st century. 30 years ago, this kind of conversation, I don't think anybody would have had this kind of conversation at all. And so I'm just really curious.
Like, you're not staying at a company for more than 5 years. What's wrong with you?
And you're not just saying yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Because the world has so many different opportunities now, we can really pursue our own dreams. And so how do we do that and be part of an organization that's doing really good as well?
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I'm looking at the time and like we just went through that and it went so fast. I feel we talk so much more, but I feel like we've scratched the surface a little bit on this concept. And there's now I'm like, ooh, we've got to look at some of these things. And I think we've uncovered some really, really great stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yes.
More that we can talk about, but we sadly have to wrap it up. So as I do with every show, I end with a question that has come from my audience that both me and my co-host can answer. And I picked this one because since we both went through a coaching program and finished at the same time, it would be interesting to see how our answers are the same or different. And so the question is, I'm curious if the process of starting this coaching business has been what was imagined. Was it harder? How has it been surprised? Or I guess it's saying, was it harder or has there been anything that's surprising? So you want to go first?
Okay, you went first last time. I guess I will. Yeah, so this has not gone at all what I thought it would. I had no context to know what I would think it would look like. Um, I don't regret it one bit. I mean, I'm loving what I do, and each week, each month, each client I work with, it just reaffirms like, yeah, this was the right call. But the first year and a half, 2 years was, looking back at it, was really challenging. And to be honest, like I still think there's huge opportunities for us to get clearer and to be better penetrating the market, and to be doing more. So we have in no way arrived. Um, surprises surprises for me are the skills that are required to succeed. And it's interesting because there's a lot of, with the coaching space, there's a lot of people marketing to new coaches,
Mm-hmm.
and they are wanting to sell you everything and anything to help you, and promising your business will grow. I get pinged 3 or 4 times a week from someone on LinkedIn or Facebook saying they can help fill my bucket of clients. Okay. I ignore them. I that is not, and I honestly, I mean, maybe, if you're entering that space and you find somebody that can truly help you, I mean, I don't know what to say, but
Yeah.
you will be marketed to, and sold to, probably more so than many other businesses, because so many new coaches are looking to get answers. And I would take it very, very slowly. We're actually going to be kicking off piloting a 0 to 100K program in a couple months. And we're going to talk to some new starting like at the gate, and some brand new entrepreneurs.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just going to share with them. I said, look, 0 to 100K, this is not like high level stuff, but I'm going to pass on the things I've learned, in my journey. And one of those is prove the concept. Go into the market, get somebody to pay you something, first, and
Yeah.
then prove that out before you start investing $3, $4, $5,000 in a website, before you start getting business cards. You literally need a Gmail account and a PayPal account. And if you want to go coach, you can go coach for $5 a session, and do that 10, 15 times, and then up your rates. Do that again for 10, 15. Literally prove out your foundation, and keep your day job. Just think long term. If you do that for 2 years, you will be at a position, and you'll have the funds, and you'll have the confidence. You'll know clearly who you are and the types of people that you can coach, and everything else will fall into place.
Yeah.
We have this impetus to do an online business. I just got off the phone about a week ago with a guy, hey, I think I want to build an online business. And I said, why don't you build the business first?
Yeah.
Then go online. And
Yeah.
so that would be my thought for your viewers.
Yeah. I mean, I completely echo all of that. And, I did a lot of, for me, the first couple of years were so like, I'm going to do everything. And I think that the biggest shift between me 4 years ago when.
Sorry, I don't know that.
Oh, my Alexa wants to talk to me. Yeah, she doesn't know that. I'm surprised that I normally mute that. And it took the entire hour before she decided to chime in. I think that the biggest shift that I have made is that I think when I left the coaching program, I was so headstrong about going back to making the money that I was making in my former job. And that was the wrong focus. Because then I was like just throwing everything out there and trying to do everything that I could. And I mean, I don't regret my path at all, because I think now I'm at a place where I'm like, okay, now I'm just cruising. And I had to do that initial work ahead of time. But, this year for me has been this exploration on what I feel wealth actually means, because there's been multiple times over the last few years where I'm like, I'm not making the money that I want. I'm not making the money that I want. And it's very clear I'm not making the money that I was making when I was employed. I have no 401k. I don't have those things, but I would let myself get so caught up in that. And, part of the work that I do is very focused on like, are you living a life that you can be happy with? And some of that, you know, isn't about like how much money you're making. Are you making the most of the time that you have? And so I have been, I'm in the completion of month 2 of this exploration of like, what is wealth? And I'm only on this place of like, wealth for me first means that I need to create all like an abundance of time and not feel like I'm like, oh my God, I'm doing so many things. And so I've really had to slow down. But what's great too is that all the hard work that I did in the first couple of years are giving me these opportunities to speak and to be out there and publicity, different things. Like there's so much that's happening and I'm not looking for them. So it's hard to say, I don't even really know what I expected. I knew that I was going to work hard, but I also feel like at this stage in my career or in this business, I don't feel like there are days where I feel like, am I doing enough? Like am I really, because I don't feel like I'm working 100 hours. It might be in my brain, but I'm not at my computer all the time. And I've been trying to consciously shift that where I'm like, I don't want to be just working all the time, but everything that I do, I figure out a way to weave it in. Like I did improv for a year and I weave that into my business and it's paying off. So I think I really don't think that I knew what to expect coming in. So, but I think that the money thing is the biggest shift because when I start letting go of how much money I'm making and worrying about that stuff, it releases all the stress and then opportunities just show up, which is great. So, but I'm not trying to chase like a 6-figure coaching business, which is the thing that, as you were saying, Greg, everybody's trying to pitch to you, have a 6-figure coaching business. We are in a business of transforming people's lives and helping them live, happier and more fulfilled. And you can't, yes, you should be paid what you're worth, but you also like, if you lead with that, like that's the type of coaching business that turns me off just in my opinion.
No. And I can see because you're tying into, the impact, the value you provide. And that's, I think the big thing is if you're starting off as a coach, where's the value that you're providing? And that's not clear to you. And that's not clear to the people you're trying to sell to. Yeah. And so I talked with a master coach like very early on. And he's like, he said, Greg, it takes 12, 15 months, sometimes 2 years for a new coach to be actively going into the marketplace and actively doing their coaching thing. It takes them that long before they can actually identify like, this is my thing. Yeah. This is what I'm about. And I can point to the time where it became clear to me, professional development, leaders and teams, like that just, it clicked in a very, very special way for me. And like what you're talking about, it clicked for you. Yeah. And it takes that time to get that to click. And then after you get that, you need to go down another level because now you still have to differentiate within that market. And so you have to give yourself the time, or be prepared to do a really deep dive, like go away for a week and have somebody come with you. And if you know marketing, if you know how to get a clear message, design that and then go out and prove it. Yeah. I mean, that I think is the core thing. You got to go to the market and prove it, and be passionate, be confident, commit yourself to your goal. You can do all of that, but you still got to go out and actually, find people you can help.
Yeah, totally.
And when you found some people you can help, then you go find some more. Yeah. If you can't find anybody that you can help, then after a period, you have to come back and say, well, what can I shift? Yeah. And what I've seen a lot of people doing is going all in with the website and the social media and creating content and creating this and creating that. And they haven't done any of that. Like, who am I? Where do I bring value? And who am I after? Yeah. And it seems like a chicken and egg thing. Yeah. But, do the low risk investment with time and just go to some BNIs, go to some local things, talk about who you are. Yeah. Find somebody willing to buy you a cup of coffee in exchange for coaching, and build on that. So that's those are some thoughts I would have for your viewers.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Yeah. All right, Greg, this is so amazing. I'm so glad that we were able to connect
Yes.
and talk about this, and I'm sure that the conversation's not over. And if anybody is watching this and has any questions, feel free to throw it in the comments on YouTube or on my website, where it will live forever.
If I could put one thing out, if any of your viewers would like to share a story of a horrible/evil boss with me, I would love to capture that. Your husband did that for us, so thank you.
Yes.
And it's just part of the research and potentially something I may put into a book to hopefully move this conversation forward. So
Yeah.
And they could find me. I don't know. You probably put
your contact information is below, and
it's
for
in there,
sure.
so
And
that'd be great.
all right, thank you so
April,
much,
thank you.
and thank you everyone for watching. And episode 26 will come out in a couple weeks, so stay tuned for that. Bye, everyone.